Well, good morning, guys, and welcome to the show, Fernando.
Welcome to the show.
Today we have a car stereo lab for you. That's right, this is Haley's car stereo lab. That means we have the Ford Escape in the bay to do some new stuff on. But let me give you some backstory real quick. Audison reached out to us the other day. They said, hey, we have new software coming out for the Forza line of amplifiers. These guys right here. And they pitched us a really cool idea. So we're like, heck yeah, we want to be part of that. Which means we have to get this into the car so that we can actually show you part 2 video. I know what you're thinking, wait a minute, part 2? We haven't even filmed part 1. We haven't even watched part 1. And you're right, but that's okay, because we're gonna do it, and it's gonna be fun. Let's roll the intro and I'll tell you all about it. So we know how much you guys love DSP talk. You love talking about DSPs. You love DSP things that are made easy. You love DSP things that are made hard. Basically everything DSP you guys eat up. So when Ken Ward reached out to us and says, hey, what do you think about this idea? And I said, I love the idea. What is the idea? What if we put one of the new Forza amplifiers into the lab, and then he dialed in and did the new, that's right, new updated software where it can auto-tune the car. And we're like, man, that sounds cool. I really like that. So today we have to get this amplifier installed into the car so that we can make video 2 where he dials in and auto-tunes the car and explains how it's done and shows you guys all about it in case that's something you're interested in. Does that sound like fun, Fernando?
Sounds like fun.
Today's video, we're gonna learn about the Forza amplifier and all of the Forza amplifiers and what the theory is behind it. And we're gonna get you guys all prepped and excited. We're gonna show you how to set up the amplifier so that it can go into this car. And of course, we'll show you the amplifier. Let's get to it. First off, let's take a look at this amplifier. This is one of several Forza amplifiers. When I say several, they've kind of thought about all different applications that you could possibly need a DSP amplifier used in, and has set forth in creating these applications. If you've been following the channel, one of the amplifiers that you know I'm excited about is the new Forza 1000.7. That particular amplifier has 6 channels of DSP signal output and 1 channel dedicated to the sub-amp that is there. And now you might be saying, why would you need something like that? Well, in a lot of these modern vehicles, they need DSP to fix the problems that the factory signal might have. Building a DSP in the sub-amp makes a lot of sense, and then being able to expand upon that at a later date also makes a lot of sense. This particular amplifier, though, is the 4.10, meaning it has 4 channels of amplification with a total of 10 channels of DSP, 4 of which are for the internal amplifier. They also make all the other combinations of amplifiers, such as a 12.14, an 8.14, and one they made specifically for us here in the US, which is the 5.11. That's right, a 5-channel amp, because we know here in the US we just absolutely love 5-channel amplifiers. Now, when you go, wait a minute, so it's this size amplifier, like this, it's a 4-channel amplifier, it has 6 extra channels of DSP. What am I doing with that? They also made amplifiers that they call companion amplifiers, and in that, they made a 6-channel, a 4-channel, and a mono block that are fully bridgeable. That means I could take this amplifier here, which is a 4-channel, it has that extra 6 channels of DSP, 10 channels. And today I could put this in the car and I could use it to power the tweeters and the mid bass. Right now I'm not doing any rear fill. So if I wanted to, I could buy the companion amplifier, let's say the M4D, and I could put that in and I could power up some rear speakers. I could bridge it to power up my mid bass and move these 2 channels to the rear speakers so I get more power. I could get the 6 channel and bridge that and put more power on my front and add a 3-way set. I could get the mono block if I wanted to add a specific amp for a sub channel. If I wanted to add a center channel, I could do that with the, you get the idea. There's an unlimited amount of options, and they all carry a very similar footprint, so that makes installation very pleasing to the eye, meaning you don't have all these weird shapes and sizes and goofy stuff like that that nobody actually likes. That's kind of the idea behind why they make this wide variety of amplifiers in this one cool line. But let's take a look at the box itself like we always do and kind of get an idea if there's anything here that makes sense. And the first thing that makes sense to me is this guy right here where it says fully bridgeable. This is a very important feature for this amplifier because a lot of times you get into these small amplifiers and they're not bridgeable. They can run at 2 ohms, but you can't bridge and get extra power out of the amplifier. They wanted to make sure that you understood that this was actually capable of doing that. So even though this is a 4-channel amplifier, we could easily turn it into a 2-channel amplifier and get some of those companion amps to do, as we said, some of the neat things with it. If you're into high-res audio, this is certified to do that. It's full DA compatible, bit drive, has a universal speaker simulator for integrating into a factory system. And then as you work your way around the box, similar printing around all of it until you get to, of course, the back side of the box, which is where a lot more information can be gleaned, such as the size of the amplifier. This diagram here, which I like it when they give me an actual diagram. Between the screw holes is 7 inches. It is 7.8 inches in actual, and then between the screw holes here is 4.4 inches. Actual size of the amplifier being 5.27 inches. And then it has a whole bunch of classifications of the amplifier for depending on what country you live in. So we still don't know things like power and whatnot, but we're gonna find that out soon enough. Let's pop the top. First thing we see when we do that is download area. This is the AF C4.10 bit. For software, firmware, manuals, and audio tracks, use the QR code, follow the link. How nice is that? They give you a QR code, or they actually give you the link down here in the bottom in case you're gonna be doing it from a laptop or something like that. And believe it or not, it's funny that they did this because I ran into this problem the other day where I was using my laptop and I needed to go to the address. So I actually had to open it on my phone and send it to my laptop, which was really kind of annoying. Once we get this piece of cardboard out of the way, first thing in the box is gonna be this, which is the EID program, card to be handed to the product owner. So if we open this guy up, inside we find this cool card right here that has the serial number, the model number, scan to register. So all I have to keep is this as opposed to the whole box or anything like that. But we all know everyone keeps all their boxes, so we'll just make sure this gets put back into the box. Next up, I have this harness here, which is the AUD4 Maestro RR to Audison AF bit adapter. This is the harness that will translate their pin configuration to the Maestro pin configuration. Next up is the quick start guide. Probably my biggest complaint about these amplifiers, not the guide itself. The guide has a ton of information on it, it's very useful. What I don't care for is the way the guide is put into the box, and it is this huge roadmap thing that I will never figure out how to get put back in. On this side, this has all the languages for all the countries it's sold in. Flipping it over to the other side, we have some more countries here, but this is really what we want to look at, which is this part of the diagram here. It tells me here at one glance everything I need to know about this amplifier. How to hook it up, what all the configurations are on it, dip switches, on and off switches, upgrade capability, which means to do the software update. It talks about how I can change the side panel here. Depending on what amplifier you're using, it has a certain amount of high-level inputs built into the amplifier. It might not be enough for what you're trying to do. The first one is the F4 in. This will add 4 channels of speaker inputs on top of whatever the amplifier already has. If you decide you want to expand the capabilities of the amplifier as far as like sources and whatnot, it does have optical in, but if you'd like to add a secondary one, you can. So if you wanted to run like a portable player or something like that into the unit along with using the SPDIF input, gives you the ability to add some upgrade features to the amplifier, which is pretty cool. Over here it talks about adding in the Maestro unit, talks about stripping the wires, it gives you pin and color configurations. It talks about some of the other additional things you could add to it, such as the BitCon and the BitDMI. And then it also talks about connecting it to the PC to do your software. So all in all, this is an extremely helpful piece of paper. It's just awkward, right? If we try to fold this back up, we can get to some of the statistics on the amplifier. One of the things to note is in the power supply section of the amplifier, nominal power supply voltage is 11 to 15 volts with 130 amp fuse. Plus operating voltage is 6.5 to 17.5 volts. Idle current. The idle current is an important thing because this is that one where everyone's like, the car's off, but the light is still on because I've hooked it into something like an amp pro or something like that. It's drawing just an amp. Getting down into the fun part of this, output and continuous power at 14 volts DC, 1% total harmonic distortion is at 4 ohms, 4 channel, 90 watts by 4. 4 channels, 2 ohms is 150 watts by 4. I can bridge it to 2 channel mode, channels 1 and 2 bridged and channels 3 and 4 bridged at 4 ohms. However, this does not give me the bridged power output. Input voltage for preamp is between 0.6 and 6 volts, and speaker input 0.2 to 22 volts. The 6 channels of preamp output are 5 volts. And then it kind of goes into some of the filtering and everything that is built into the software. Hey, I managed to get it folded up kind of right. There's a little box right here. Let's open that up. Beautiful box, opens all the way up, which is fantastic because a lot of the times you gotta pull this stuff out and you just end up ripping the box. I hate ripping boxes. I'm a box nerd. I love pretty boxes. I love boxes to go back the way they came to me. Inside, we get a bag of screws, 2 ferrules for the power wire, and an extra fuse along with the Allen key, the USB cable to program the amplifier, the 4-channel speaker output. It is all white and white black. It has little heat sinks with the number of channel on it. This has 8 channels of RCA input. Then we also have the speaker level input, which is an identical harness minus the RCA tips. So if you're in one of those situations like where you're like, oh my gosh, they're the same. You can just add RCA tips to this if you needed to. It does have the 8-channel speaker level input, so you can do summing and all that fun stuff into the amplifier if need be. Moving on, it has the second 4-pin harness, which is for remote in, remote out, and triggers. Lastly, I have my 6-channel RCA output harness. If you didn't pick up on it, if you look at the cables and how they're designed, we have our inputs are fully colored, fully ready to go using standard color configurations, white, gray, green, purple. And they've added in their own blue, orange, green, and yellow. Output wise, both RCA and speaker are not. They're very plain and white. The idea here is that you're not gonna get the two confused. For our installation, we'll be using the extra RC outputs to go off to our subwoofer amp. We'll be using the speaker outputs to go to our tweeter and our mid-range. And we'll be using RCAs to go off to our radio that's already installed in the car. We'll need the remote turn on so that we can get a trigger to turn it on, as well as turn on our sub amplifier. This guy, however, the high level input will not be used. Next up is the amplifier itself. It does have this cool Audison sticker that is over the seam, so you know that the amplifier is all sealed up and ready to go. There's a silicone pack in here as well. Keep moisture out of the amplifier. And there's information located on the bottom of the amplifier. Let's take a look at it. First up, it gives us a breakdown for the 4-pin harness here. It tells us the color codes. Blue, black is remote out. Pink is control 2. Brown is control 1. And blue is remote in. And it goes right here where they're showing the diagram for it, which is kind of cool. Second up is our speaker outputs. The cool thing about them putting this on here is that it lines up with the plug itself. Over here on the ends, it has little shrink wraps that say 3, 2, 1, 4, all those. However, if these were to rub off or get disappeared or who knows what, when you plug this into the amplifier, now you can follow the configuration out to see that this is channel 1, 2, and 3. That means that no matter what, this first one here that is closest to this pin is going to be channel 1, and so on and down. It'll also tell us negative and positives. The positives are the solid colors denoted by their closest to this clip here on the top, which is this guy right here. This denotes positive, and the bottom is negative. Even if this plug goes all sideways and we have to redo it for whatever reason, the schematic is right here on the bottom of the amplifier. Next up is the pre-in or speaker in. That is this rainbow of joy right here. In this case, we're going to be using our front left and right input, as well as our subwoofer is going to be attached down here to input 7 and 8. And that is also all listed here on the amplifier by color. Positives are the clip side, just like on the speaker outputs. Before we plug this cable in, however, we need to look at the side of the amplifier, so we'll pause on that one for right now. The last cable is going to be this one here, which is the preamp level output. And as you can see, there is no diagram pointing to that anywhere on this. One last thing is to look down here at the bottom where it says extension. This is the panel over on this side that we'd remove to add in those 4 extra high level inputs or the extra digital in. Looking at the sides of the amplifier, the first one we see is the little 30 amp fuse located here. There's also a vent in the side of the amp. Back side's pretty solid. This side here has the 2 Phillips screws to get to that extension panel. And I know the curiosity is just driving you crazy, as it is me, to see what it actually looks like behind here. We look up in there, we just see the cool connection that it's going to plug into. Turning it to the full size here, we can take a look at all the parts of the amplifier. First up is going to be your 12 volt power and ground input. This will take an 8 gauge. The ART switch, our USB input, Maestro input here, DSP out, that is for this 4-pin located here, optical in, and then you have speaker in and pre-in. That's why we couldn't just plug it in randomly without looking at the top of the amplifier first. If it is going to be high level, this will pass through its universal speaker simulator. We're going to be using RCAs. Over here on the RCA output, we'll be using what is called 5 and 6, removing the caps from those. I like that they put caps over all the RCAs, which is fantastic. Take them off of inputs 1 and 2, as well as input 8. And now this is ready to get it installed into the lab. Now, since we're going with an Audison amplifier, it only makes sense to put in some Audison speakers. I happen to have a set of the APK 165 Prima 6.5-inch component speakers, which would be a great addition to go with this amplifier. First thing up is the tweeter, this little guy right here. Ooh. The grill is removable, however it is glued into place, so if you don't need to, you can just leave it on. There is a screw located in the back of the tweeter for mounting options, which is really nice. I like it when the manufacturers do that. It does make it a little bit easier to make the mounts. And then we have the mid bass themselves. One of the things that makes Audison unique is the way they make their dust cap. It comes into this beautiful little inverted nipple here, this point. They use a different type of surround. It's not just a big rolling surround. It has like this accordion surround to it that is not rounded. They're all shiny points. Adds a lot of movement to the cone. Off-axis listening on these is phenomenal, which is great because they're going to be in a door. Normal size magnets, stamped steel construction. Cone is treated on the front, cloth on the back, and it has a foam gasket here around the front. Does not have one on the back, so we'll be adding some foam to this to make it go into the door really nice. Let's get these over into the car to go along with our amplifier. The nice thing about the Lab is it comes complete with sound treatment and foam rings already installed. All we have to do is pull out the old speakers, put in the new speakers, and we get the door panel back on pretty quick. It makes upgrading pretty seamless. It's also the same for the tweeters and the 8-pillars. They fit right into the lasered brackets we've already previously made. We just need to dress up the wires here with the appropriate ends. We can get these in and up and running. And we have the amplifier Lab bracket all in place. This is a Lab bracket, guys. This isn't the standard 5-star hookup. This is just a bracket so we can take it in and out, put new amplifiers in as necessary if you're new to the Lab. This guy is all set and ready to go. So we can plug it into the DSP software and get the basic setup in it in order to protect the speakers, which means we're just gonna set up the crossovers. We're not gonna do delay or anything like that at this point in time. We're gonna leave that for Ken in part 2. So click on the bit D with the black. It will open and it'll show the model of the amplifier. You see a status bar here across the bottom. This is now loading into the amplifier. This is the new bit drive software. I know I'm using the camera to look at it. We don't have a lot that we need to do here, and we'll just use the quick startup wizard, which is located here. Select start. We will not be using optical. In this case, we'll select low level. It gives us some quick fast keys, but we've set ours up a little differently. We're going to be using the front left, front right, and way down here on 8 is the subwoofer. Select next. Now we have to set up our outputs. There again, there are some quick setups right here to do that. If you scroll to the left, you can figure out what it is that you need, or just come on down here and click front left tweeter, front right tweeter, front left woofer, front right woofer, scroll down to output 10 and select subwoofer. Then in other, we can select the tweeter we're running, AP1. We could select the mid-range we're running, which is the AP 6.5. And then for subwoofer, we're going to leave that on other. Select next. And at this point, I can enter in my measurements for delay. And Fernando conveniently measured those before we started. Next. Default volume, we're just going to leave that where it's at for right now. Setup is complete. Select done. Now what this has done for me is this has set up the crossovers, the time delay. The crossovers were adjusted to spec from them. I can go back and change anything I want at any point in time. My delay is over here. My crossovers are down here. The EQ is set to flat. That still needs to be done. With all of that stuff taken care of, the last thing is to obviously make sure that it's playing audio. This is one of those things that you might overlook and could get freaked out about. A lot of DSP manufacturers now have the volume turned down in the DSP so that when you first power it up, if by some chance you accidentally left the radio turned up or it defaults up already, like you're integrating into a factory stereo, you could possibly blow the speakers. In the bit drive software, it is located over here in the corner. Click on it, turn turn it up until it says 0. And now you should have audio playing from all your speakers that are connected to the amplifier. However, you're going to want to test that. This is one of the things that they do that is really cool. Most DSP software will mute channels, but it's like you got to go over here, you got to go over there, you got to jump around, and it's annoying. Or you mute them all and then you unmute the ones you want to hear. This is something I find extremely sexy about this software, and I'm going to show it to you because I really like this. When you're looking at the channel, you have a few options. One is a pen so that you can change the name. 2 is telling you that it's a speaker, meaning this is coming from the amplifier. If you look over here at 10, you'll see this little like RCA icon. That's telling you that's an output from the amplifier. But next you see this little weird icon here, and that is supposed to be an ear. Mute is right below it. If I click on the ear though, that will only play channel 1 output of the amplifier, which should be this tweeter, and it is. So if I come over here and I click on channel 2, it'll play channel 2. If I unclick that, now it is just playing channel 2. We could follow this around to play channel 3 and unclick channel 2. And now it is only playing the driver's mid bass. And of course the last one is the passenger mid bass, which it's playing this one over here. This allows me to quickly jump through the speakers and find out and make sure what is playing. Sometimes we do that a lot, like when we're testing for polarity and stuff like that, because it's, let's say, a 3-way set and the 2-inch is really close to the tweeter. We might get a false read or something weird might happen. I love this feature. I think it is extremely cool. And when you turn it off, all of them turn back on. Yay! There we go, guys. This is now set up and ready for the next step of this, where we get to talk about the cool feature of Accordo. That is it. Normally at this point I'd say Fernando, and he would say on to the next one or something like that, but he left. He left me here because he had to get going, working late to get this done. I gotta get this car back to Haley. But stay tuned for part 2. We will have Ken Ward from Electromedia doing the Accordo version of the new BitDrive 2.0 software. How exciting is that? If you guys would like to find out more about this, make sure to head over to Electromedia's page, select on Audison, and you can download this to your Windows computer and start playing with it and see if it interests you, or just so that when Ken comes over to do this, you have a good idea of what he's talking about. That's it. That's all I got for you. Fernando, if you please. On to the next one. There you go, guys. You guys have a great night as always. We'll see you later next time. Bye. Bye.